So anyway, congratulations.
Thanks, Patrick. You too.
And again, it does not feel like 16 years. It feels longer, but also much, much shorter.
I would say it feels exactly like 16 years. I went into this in detail, but the amount of stuff that we've accomplished, or at least worked on in 16 years, is a very long list. And when I think about it, it feels incredibly daunting. So that definitely equals 16 years in my brain.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting. So come and join the conversation. Eyes to approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
W. Dal Bush.
Dal Bush.
Del Bush.
Dal.
Del.
W. Dal Bush.
This isn't exclusive just to me being in comics retail, but I do tend to hold on to significant dates and anniversaries and events, if you will.
I thought you were going to say grudges, which is also a comics retail thing.
Yeah, sure. I'm never going to forget you said that.
I know. And the day I did it on.
That's right. When we were recording this, the 678th episode,
678.
Contest of Challengers, comics industry business podcast from Challengers in Chicago, featuring
W. Dal Bush
and me. So we talked a lot last week about this being our 16th anniversary. And this is technically the 16th anniversary episode because by the time it goes up, we will have done it. Mm-hmm. We only need to have, at the point we're recording, 2 more days of business to get to our 16th anniversary. And I'm pretty sure we're going to make it.
Yeah, that's nice.
So even when this goes up for patrons on Saturday night, the store will have been closed. And that's it. That was the end of our, full 16th year.
Yes, correct.
So this, in fact, is March 31st. That's our anniversary day.
Correct.
For the store being open.
Yep.
Not to be confused with late July 2009, which is when this podcast started. Mm-hmm. So it's not a podcast anniversary.
I think March 31st
episode.
I want to say is also Comics Experience, right?
April 1st.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So Brian Hibbs, who owns Comics Experience, he and I have the same birthday. Mm-hmm. He is a year older than I am. He opened his store April 1st. We did March 31st. And he opened
many years apart, for the record.
Yes, but here's the catch. He opened his store the year before, or was it earlier in the year, that I got into retail.
Okay.
So basically, his life and his career, did I say we had the same birthday? We had the same birthday.
You did. You started with that.
His life and his career parallels mine.
Yep. Quantum entanglement.
And it's not, we don't look a million miles apart physically.
But on the other hand, that's just comics retail.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you can't throw a rock at a Comics Pro meeting without hitting a few dozen people who look in the similar genetic pool as you and Brian Hibbs.
Yeah, but see, what I would do is just throw my rocks at you.
That's fine. That's why I don't go.
And April 27th is my official comic book retail anniversary. So what I need to do really is to get to, did I say April? I meant August. August 27th of 2025.
Wow, okay.
For a very particular retail anniversary.
Ooh.
But, we'll talk more about that in a year and a half.
Yeah, sure.
In a year and a half,
I'll remember.
We'll talk about that one. But don't worry, I will remember. But anniversaries and numerology and things like that, there's a lot of meaning to specific tattoos I have based on numbers and dates and anniversaries.
Neat.
I got the Comics Fist tattoo on my 25th retail anniversary.
Okay.
For my 52nd tattoo, I got a Robin mask to denote, DC's New 52 and comics and whatnot.
Sure.
My 32nd tattoo was a Gustavo Duarte one because that is his favorite number.
Okay.
Things like that.
Neat.
And other tattoos have been on other anniversaries.
Mm-hmm.
The cap face on my back of my hand, on my left hand, that's a specific date, things like that. There's a lot of that. But anyway, so this, of course, is 16 years, but we droned on and on about 16 years last week.
Yes. Inadvertently, but yes.
Yes. So anyway, congratulations.
Thanks, Patrick. You too.
And again, it does not feel like 16 years. It feels longer, but also much, much shorter.
I would say it feels exactly like 16 years. I went into this in detail, but the amount of stuff that we've accomplished, or at least worked on in 16 years, is a very long list. And when I think about it, it feels incredibly daunting. So that definitely equals 16 years in my brain.
And we often go back and look at all the things we used to that don't do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And every time a store pops up that like, look, we have a little reading nook for kids. Like, yeah, we used to have all of that. We had tables, we had chairs, we had action figures, we had coloring.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear when we talk about that stuff and we mention that we don't do them anymore. I think it's completely fine to not do stuff.
For sure.
To, as a store, try stuff out. And even if something's working, to just eventually say, like, let's not do that anymore. Like, you don't have to do things forever. Ending, like, a specific recurring thing or project or an event doesn't mean like it never worked. It just means like, no, we're just moving on from that. It's fine.
Are you talking about the podcast?
I'm not talking about the podcast. No, there's, like you said, I mean, there's so many things, especially in the early years where we were really trying to establish both ourselves as a store and an identity for the store by doing a lot of different types of events and kind of trying to say yes to as many different options as possible. And then eventually we realized what did or did not work for us. And so we pared away a lot of things, reemphasize different parts of our business. And then there's stuff that still comes back. Molly Jane was crucial in reestablishing the book club as something that she wanted to start doing. So now we do the book club again. Like that's something that you or I individually would have been like, don't bother. But she took it upon herself, and she's the one who's been helping organize that every month. And that's great. Like, so
with a big hat tip to the Springhams.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't mean to say that no one else is involved, but I'm just saying Molly Jane was the one who internally at Challengers was like, we should do this again.
Yeah.
Other people, just like, Women's Comics Night, there's a lot of customers and former employees and stuff that have worked with those groups and turned them into more than just what we might have intended for them to be or what we'd given support towards. But anyway, going back, I think it's cool that a lot of stores, when they're starting out, have that same energy and have that same enthusiasm and are looking for a lot of different things. And, while we can say we tried that and it didn't work for X or Y reasons, that doesn't mean no store should try or that it might not work for them. It might. I mean, there's things we tried that worked for other stores and didn't work for us. And then there's things that, maybe we've done and other stores have tried and it didn't work for them. Trying is good.
Going back to the Brian Hibbs comparison, when we were first opening up, we had read a quote from him about how he just doesn't do events anymore because they're just not worth it for the store.
Sure.
And that is, for the most part, where we are now as far as broader events where we have to bring people in.
Yeah, anything with like a cost to it.
Yeah.
Beyond stocking books is really, really a hard sell for us at this point. Very few events that we've done that we've had to put money into have ended up being profitable for us. The biggest events we have are the ones where it's either something that's got a much larger infrastructure to it beyond just Challengers, like Free Comic Book Day. Like when we can loop in on stuff like that, that's great. Or like one of our biggest events ever was the Rick and Morty van.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that was brought to us as like, would you want to host this? And it's like, yes. And obviously we put money into it and
we had to jump through hoops to get it.
We did.
Let's not forget that.
But it wasn't something where we approached somebody and said like, hey, we have an idea.
Yeah.
It was a nationwide
said,
tour.
How can you make this work if we were to do it your store?
It was a nationwide tour that we were happy to pitch on and hope that it could bring people. And it did. It was a huge day for us, and it was a nightmare day for us as well.
Yeah, and it was a nightmare day for them also, just because they were set up on a very busy street and not in like a strip mall parking lot where they would prefer to have been.
Right, and on top of that, I mean, the amount of people that came out and the logistics they had for serving that crowd were to snuff.
Sure.
But it's where we met Kyle Starks, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But now Brian Hibbs does at least 2 major events every month for his book clubs.
Right.
And I think that's ironic that he's like gone back.
I think you can. And we've vacillated plenty of times over the years as far as what we want to do as far as signings. Like there's been times where we've had a string of signings that we were excited about and people didn't care about, and that led us to say, like, no signings, we're not doing this. But then someone comes to us and they say, I'm doing a book tour, or I'm going to be in town, or a friend of ours has a new launch coming up, and it's like, well, how do you say no to those things? And suddenly you're doing signings again.
Yeah, we never not did signings, but we did.
No, but we've not wanted to do signings a bunch
Sure.
of times over the last 16 years.
And a lot of the events we have coming up, they're with as many local people or people who will be in town as possible.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is relationships we've cultivated over the years. And I mean, there are people that I've reached out to who have done stuff with us before. Like we have Sarah Beacon coming up on May 18th.
Beaks.
She's done several events. Remember the Short Pants Press Po?
Mm-hmm.
You did that one solo because I was
Yes.
out of town.
I don't remember.
I can't remember. The irony was you were going to be out of town for this one, but you're not going to now.
No. I will be
And-
in the sitting.
We've got Sage Coffee coming up, who has been at the store before as well.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Michael Marici.
Michael Marici and Brett Schoonover, who we've tried to do before but never worked out. So this will be the first one for him.
For
And,
sure.
Yeah, Mike Marici for sure we've had before, and upcoming, we don't have a date for it yet, but Bianca Eunice, who's going to be back. They've been to the store before as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, again, relationships that we have cultivated. And then we've got, for Free Comic Book Day, we have Tom Kelly, who's been at the store a bunch of times and done a bunch of stuff with us.
Sure.
And we sell his Hello Kitties all the time.
Yes.
And Arcangelo, who was just at the store for an Ashes signing
Correct.
on a Sunday.
Yep.
And has done multiple signings before. He's also going to be at Free Comic Book Day.
Yep.
And then a first-timer for us, but someone we worked with a few times in the past already, with Jedala Lewis.
Mhm.
And I'm very excited for her to have a full-day experience tabling.
Yeah, the things that we're not really pursuing as much are the ones where we would have to fly somebody in. That's where the economics really break down for us as far as the larger comic market and specifically the Chicago Bucktown neighborhood. It is insane to us that if we have to fly somebody out and put them up in a hotel room, even for one night, we've basically lost money on the event.
Oh, yeah.
There's no book that we seem to be able to sell in high enough quantities to be able to afford to bring anybody out. Like, if it was if Ed Brubaker wanted to come out,
Yeah,
we could probably make that work.
sure.
If Ed Brubaker is listening to this and wants to do a launch event for Houses of the Unholy, we could probably sell enough copies of that $25 graphic novel to make it profitable to bring him out. But here's the twist. If we didn't bring him out, we'd probably be more profitable just selling the book as is.
Sure.
We'd have to sell a ton of copies of the book just to pay for him to come out, and then the additional copies
here's the thing
that
with-
we would normally have sold before.
With Ed Brubaker, the amount of material he has already exists that everybody would bring in
Right.
and not buy from us.
But again, that's why it would have to be for a launch event.
Right. And also, if you look at, and we've talked about this in the past, if you look at the book industry, if you go to a signing, you have to buy the book from that store at that event.
Right.
Or have bought it and have a receipt.
Right.
Comic fans don't expect that and sometimes reject it.
Yeah. The expectation is, well, but I've already supported their stuff, therefore I should be able to meet them and get this stuff signed. I bought it from you. Like, what you were buying was not a down payment on an artist event. That was just a book you bought. But yeah, like, so, I mean, let's do some back of the envelope math. So Houses of the Unholy is a $25 graphic novel.
Yeah.
Let's say a store gets 50% discount.
Yeah.
So you're making $12.50 per book. If we were to fly out at Brubaker, coach, one night in a hotel room in the neighborhood, Uber to and from the airport to his hotel, I mean, we're talking about like $600?
Yeah, I imagine the hotel room by itself is, with taxes and fees and everything, it's $300.
Okay.
If it's a weekend, it's higher.
Right.
A flight from LA is a hub, Chicago's
Sure.
a hub.
Sure.
So you could probably get a $350 flight for
Right.
that.
So we're already in like the $700 to $800 range.
Yeah,
So let's say $800.
sure.
So $800.
We're gonna take him to dinner, and I'm gonna drink a lot.
Stuff like that, like little things like that, I'm not really counting.
Okay.
Because that's just that's
You said
dinner.
little. You haven't seen that bar tab.
I have heard stories. So we're at $800. Let's divide that by $1,250 that we're making per book.
Yeah.
So just to fly him out and do all that, we would have to sell 64 copies of Houses of the Unholy.
To break even.
To break even. So let's say we sell, at the event, let's say 100 people show up for this, which would be insane. Like,
Correct.
for an author event for 100 people, if you are not a former WWE wrestler who's training to fight in UFC, you do not get that kind of crowd.
Also, if you have a 3-hour
Jason Aaron
event,
didn't get that kind of crowd.
if you have a 3-hour event,
Uh-huh.
you can't get through 100 people
Yeah.
in that time.
Yeah. So let's say 100. Like, let's say we sell 100 copies. So 64 of them just paid for Brubaker to come out.
Yeah.
So the additional 36
36
that we sold are actually like generating an additional profit. We would sell more than 36 without him even being there.
Yeah. Wow.
So
when you put it that way.
So in that instance, it is better for us to not bring Ed Brubaker out and just sell the book to people than bring him out for a one-night event where he signs copies of the books for fans. That's Ed Brubaker. Like, if you're talking about someone doing a $5 Marvel comic, there's no way.
Well, to be fair, we
literally doesn't
long
work.
ago quit doing events for out-of-towners for single-issue comics.
Sure. But I'm just saying, for people who maybe aren't unaware of, like, why a store would choose not to do that when it's like, but bringing them in is going to sell more books. Like, no, but they cost so much money. And this is assuming the creator is willing to do it for free.
Yeah.
Which is a huge ask. Like, we would not cold approach somebody like Ed Brubaker and say, hey, come out to Challengers, a store you've never been to, and waste 2 days of your career coming out to a store you've never been to, signing copies of a book, and then flying back home.
It's my understanding that Ed Brubaker's rider is 2 first class or business class tickets, accommodations in a very modern hotel.
He's got to be able to meet the Dalai Lama.
And that's the punchline now. The experience
Uh-huh.
you can't get elsewhere.
You gotta pitch him an experience. So even if you do all the other stuff, you might not be able to get him.
That's true. Also, that is not Ed Brubaker. That
It was
we're
a
making
different creator that we were told that we could approach, but we were like, when we heard those conditions, we were like, no, it's okay.
Yeah, but you don't have to pay them.
I don't know what the experience would be. I mean, obviously, a lot of people would say, well, obviously, it's meeting you, Dal. And I'm like, yes, I get that. But
I was legitimately going to say
I
that.
couldn't pitch that to them.
That's why I would pitch it.
So, yeah, I would love to be able, like,
There was a point in the early days where we thought events are a way to get the store's name out there,
Sure.
to get people aware of us, but also I foolishly thought once people came to the store, met that creator and had a good experience and also saw what the Challengers experience was, they would decide to make Challengers their store.
yeah, this would just be a first taste, and suddenly they'd be like, well, I got to come back here every week or every month.
And I don't think we've gained a single long-term subscriber.
I would say we probably did, and we just don't know it.
Well,
But, like, a very low amount.
that's what I was going to get to.
Okay.
Yeah, that. But I mean, it's possible, but no one's ever said so.
Right.
And if we did, we would know. Like, okay, we've got our good friend Heidi, who was just in the store last week, doesn't live in the state, drove into to Chicago to meet Brian Azzarello at a free comic book day event when we had him, I don't know how many years ago.
Yeah.
And since then, Heidi is a regular online shopper, not a subscriber.
Mhm.
She has her own local shop where she lives,
Sure.
but does make it a point to buy stuff from us during the sale every year and multiple times, and comes to visit the store a couple times a year.
Yeah.
Way more than I've ever gone to visit her town,
It's true.
which is 0.
Once?
I went to Madison one time, but that was in the pre-Challengers days.
No, we went up that one time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
For a very different reason.
Yes.
And I almost made the drive to go see Sigrid, but Sigrid wound up having a Chicago stop, so I didn't have to go to Madison.
Nice.
I was talking to my friend Felicia, who at the time lived in Chicago but was from Madison, and asking about the venue, and it wound up being like very close to where she lived at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless. Also, thank you for the cookies, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi. Yeah, I would always love the idea of doing author events. It's just the economics just literally never work.
Yeah.
We've tried a bunch of different things. One thought we had briefly was like exclusive covers and stuff, where not only do you have like you have a reason to draw everyone to this event, and then you have this thing you can sell afterwards, but like exclusive covers never do well for us. They never seem to sell out. Like
Sure.
we've had very low numbers of ones, like 100 copies, but now if you wanted to do one from a major publisher, it would be like minimum of like 1,000. Like it's a lot of copies.
Yep.
And that becomes its own additional cost where you have to sell a certain amount of those just to pay for that thing.
And they're so much more expensive than the normal
Yeah.
cover.
So as it is, like if someone's going to be in town, we'll always try and make that happen. We had a John Layman signing that was because he was laid over, I think. It was between flights or something.
Yeah, literally. So
he's like, I
Elliot
can come
Serrano
in for these hours on these days.
grabbed him
It's
from
like,
the airport, drove him
Sure.
to the signing, and then drove him right back to the airport.
yeah, we'll do that. We'll make that work.
Yeah. And it was a decent signing, too.
Yeah. Or
It was a weird, like, late Sunday evening one.
Yeah. And we've had other ones where a major publisher is like, we are putting this person on tour. Do you want to host
Yeah.
them? And again, it's like, yes, we'll make that happen. But ones where we have to initiate it and we have to pay all the costs on it, it's like, we can't do it. It would be a wash.
But
Like,
the number of times we also have to go to a publisher or a creator who approaches us and says, hey, I want to do this on this date. And we have to say, it's not worth your time.
yeah,
This is nothing against you, your product, your book, your ability. This is our inability to
reach your audience.
to get people to mobilize for an in-store event the Thursday afternoon before C2E2.
Yeah.
Like in the early days of C2E2, we would do
Parties
events
and
every
stuff,
night.
yeah.
Parties celebrating Mark Wade's Irredeemable,
No,
Dal with a costume change
had a
even.
costume change midway through.
And
Irredeemable and incorruptible.
and then the next day we had Doug Mankey and Kristen Almay doing a Green Lantern signing.
Sure.
And then the next day we had Emma Caulfield during a Contra Pussy signing.
Yeah.
And those, we're not doing those again. We can't get people to.
There's no way to get enough people from like McCormick Place all the way to Bucktown. Like,
Yeah, the irony
it's just
of-
impossible.
C2E2 being in Chicago and being so hard to get to from Challengers versus former Wizard World, now, what is it?
Fan Expo.
Fan Expo, which is in Rosemont, which is just blue line, door to door, basically.
Yeah, that's always the frustration with McCormick Place is that there's a metro line that runs through it, but like that's not convenient because it just runs up the lake. Like it doesn't get you anywhere. It just gets you farther north along the lake. And then there's the Green Line, but the Green Line is a hike from McCormick Place. It's not right next door, right underneath, or integrated into. It's just you got to walk over there, and then it's the Green Line to Clark Lake, and then the Blue Line from Clark Lake all the way to Challengers. Like,
And that's hard to explain to people from out of town.
yeah, it's impossible.
Or especially if you're doing an after hours event, trying to get from McCormick to Challengers in rush hour,
Yeah.
like after the show,
While 9094 is under tons of
Oh,
construction
man.
now,
Yeah.
forget it.
because this year for C2E2, we'll be there Friday. We have a panel about the future of comic book retail
Mm-hmm.
later in the evening, and then there's retailer programming.
5:15 on Friday.
And then there's retailer programming after hours, which I'll be honest, we weren't planning on doing.
I'm still not planning on doing.
But now that we're going to be there and our friends are going to be there, the difference is I work Fridays and I don't really have anybody extra to cover this year. And every year I would at least get back in time to close.
Right.
And now Fridays are so much more busy with deliveries.
Yeah.
And even getting things checked in, they still have to wait. They still have to get piled up and wait for me to get back on Saturday to put in through Stocky. You know, all the reorder stuff.
Sure. I mean, I guess it depends on who's there.
It'll be Gina.
Okay. You can't show Gina how to do Stocky?
I don't want to add so much more work to her while she's doing everything
Okay.
else that day.
It just feels like it'd be a good skill for her to learn, period.
Okay.
If you're not comfortable doing it, you would... I don't work with her, you do.
So that'll be Friday of C2E2.
Mm-hmm.
And even I hated coming back from C2E2 to the store
Yeah.
on those afternoons.
Yeah. And it's your store.
Now I live real close to McCormick. It's so much easier just to go home.
Yeah.
Last year, C2E2, I only went on Sunday for 2 hours because it was like, I can run over for 2, like, because I'm right there.
Yeah. A
Got
lot
there
easier
like
on Sunday, too.
3 o'clock. Parking was a breeze.
Lots empty.
Yeah.
Everyone's left.
Yeah, I just ran around, said hi to my friends, and left.
Yeah.
That was it. No, this year we want to be there all day.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go on Saturday or not. I like having the option to. I might not. We'll see.
Maybe I'll go back on Sunday. I don't know.
Who knows?
I can. Close. But that even shows there's retailer programming after hours on a Friday. Imagine,
there's programming period.
right.
after
So
hours.
imagine trying to get people to the store after that.
Yeah, I mean, beyond that, there's just a bunch of local bars and restaurants. So, like, that's what keeps people from going away
Sure.
from the convention center area. Like, why would you bother? And, like, if you were going to do stuff, you might do stuff in the Loop because you're just south of the Loop. Once you start going into, like, the north side, it's like no one's going to go that far. There's no interest. There's no interest for that. Like, if you're visiting from out of town, you're going to go to stuff like the big touristy stuff. And if you're like in from out of town, you're not going to do touristy stuff. You're just going to go back to your hotel room, or you're going to go to like one of the hotel bars.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be taken out for like a publisher dinner or whatever. And again, they're not going to be going to a comic shop in Bucktown. Like, that's not what's happening. It's not a valuable use of people's time.
I mean, last year we had our 15th anniversary party the Friday night of C2E2.
Yes. Which was unfortunate, but I mean, that's the day it was.
Right. I didn't go to C2E2 that day.
Mhm.
I was physically unable to walk around that Friday night and was honestly pretty miserable at our party as well. But we did have a decent turnout from a lot of local people who did not go to C2E2.
Yeah.
And then
nice.
some who did.
Yeah.
But that was a very rare special occasion.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, we wouldn't do it just to say like, oh, we're throwing a party
Yeah.
or we're hosting a signing. Like,
I mean,
we would wait.
it was
people off.
already our anniversary date, and then they announced their.
Yep.
And now C2E2 is a full 13 months after that, because it's the end of April this year, when it was the end of March last year.
Yes, I thought you meant it was after our anniversary. I'm thinking, no,
Well, after our 50th anniversary.
it's true.
Well, moving on from anniversaries and whatnot,
Mhm.
when we opened the store, I bought a price gun for us from, I think, Staples. And I bought a Garvey. Garvey's a well-known name in the office products field.
Okay.
I'm sure most people listening to this have heard of them if they've ever had to look at office supplies.
Okay.
They do a lot of labels. They do everything. And it was a model number 2288. And we used it for many, many years. In fact, 16 years. And we still have it, and we still use it now. However, we wound up buying a second price gun when we had a second store. We also bought a Garvey 2288, but it's a completely different updated model. It's like looking at a Ford Escape now and a Ford Escape from 10 years ago.
Okay.
They're vastly different looking things, but they're the same car.
Sure.
This is the same price gun. It uses the same exact size labels,
Mhm.
stickers,
Mhm.
price stickers.
Sure.
However, the ink roller has changed shape and size.
Okay.
And when you buy a sleeve of stickers, they come with new ink rollers.
Mhm.
They come with the modern 2288
Wow.
in mind, not the older one.
Okay.
And we still use both price guns, but one of them we haven't been able to change the ink roller in forever because I literally cannot find the old roller, the old ink roller. And I've been looking for years, not like, dedicating my life to it every day.
Not daily for years.
But a little over a month ago, I thought I found it. Of all places, on the Garvey website.
Interesting.
Now, it didn't say that it was for that model. Obviously, it doesn't because that model is different now.
Right.
Their website doesn't have the specific measurements. It doesn't say, here's how long it is, here's how wide it is, here's the circumference.
Sure.
But eyeballing it, it looked like it was right.
Uh-huh.
And it was like $3.85.
Okay.
Great. Well, you can't just order that on the website.
No?
Well, you can, but they charge you a fee for not hitting their minimum.
Okay.
So we wound up paying over $8 for it.
Okay.
Fine. And then it never showed up. And it just never came. And then I got the confirmation email about it, and it said, when we ship this, you'll get another email with tracking information. And I never got that. So I reached out to Garvey and said, hey, it was literally 1 month ago that I ordered this ink roller and never got it, nor did I get confirmation of shipping. And they got back to me within a day to say, somehow that order got hung up in our system. So we put a hold on your card. We never charged you.
Okay.
And we never sent it out. So I canceled that order. If you want to reorder it, go ahead. So I did.
Sounds like a threat.
So I did.
If you want to reorder it, go ahead.
Go ahead. And as annoying as it was, and if I'd never followed up on it, I never would have gotten any information.
Sure.
But as somebody who has literally a computer system that occasionally loses orders, or orders just get hung up somewhere in the system, I get it.
Sure.
So I ordered this, I think Monday, and it showed up on Wednesday.
Great.
Wrong size.
Oh, boo.
It's a tiny bit too small. It doesn't fit. You may have seen me fiddling with it first thing Wednesday morning.
I sure did.
And it's like, oh, well, I wasted that $8. So then I emailed that guy back and said, hey, man, maybe you can help me. Like, I got the other cartridge. It's great. I mean, it came fast. Thanks for helping me with that order. However, it's the wrong size. Do you know what this size is and where I can get it? And I've never heard back from them.
That sucks.
And I didn't mean where I can get it. I mean, do you have it? Like, how do I get an older one? Because there's nothing wrong with this price gun other than the fact that we can't.
Other than the fact that the company that makes it would prefer that you upgrade.
Which we did.
Again.
I mean, that looks like it's the option, but I can't even find knockoffs.
It sucks.
Because it's the same exact model number, so everybody just defaults to the new version.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Sounds like they beat you.
Well, they already beat me because of how much time I spent trying to figure this out.
That is true.
But also, I mean, a testament to the quality of their machines, it still works fine.
That's great.
And it still uses the same size stickers. I just can't. And also the ink roller, like if you theoretically you could be, oh, can you ink it yourself? Little eyedropper full of ink on it. But the sponge pad is beat to hell. There's
I would not go to the trouble of eyedropping ink onto it and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And that's a surefire way to have it run out. I remember the day I bought it.
Yeah.
And even customized a little Challenger sticker that long since came off.
Yeah.
But, what else do we have from 16 years ago? Oh, let me tell you. The exact same red bookshelves.
It's true.
Going strong.
Yeah.
Going strong.
God bless those metal bookshelves.
All of the grid wall.
Yep.
We've bought more grid wall over the years. We've bought more shelves over the years.
Same counters.
Same counters, right? They've seen better days. But also, we can't replace them.
Nope.
We tried when we opened Blue. They came in at different sizes.
Yeah.
Smaller sizes, lower sizes.
Lower to the ground.
With shoddier inner shelves that were also more shallow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, who wouldn't want to refresh literally every part of the store?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously redone the carpet. We did that a few years ago. And we've redone the exterior prints.
Once.
Yes. And
are never going to get the other ones.
And the top signage we redid as well.
Yeah. And all those, we're stepping in a better direction.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so it would be nice to do some of the other stuff, but I don't... Doing the outside stuff, doing things like signage is a little easier because it's something that we don't physically have to do. That's somebody else that we hire and they do it. Like, replacing the counters would be such a gigantic hassle. Because, like, where do the old ones go? How do they move? How do they get out of there? Like, the sort of tricks that we pulled 16 years ago to move those around, get those in, whatever. We're too old now.
Yeah.
We can't do that stuff.
I literally said to Dal...
It would be, honest to God, the death of you if you tried.
I literally said to Dal on Tuesday, I'm at the age where I wish supply companies would pack boards in 5-pack cases and not 10.
Yeah.
Just because lifting the case of boards, they're getting heavier.
Yes.
I mean, I can still do it, but I don't want to.
No. And it's the same way for, like, moving the counters around. Like, we would need twice as many people.
I mean, look, I'm not adverse to putting the work in.
Sure, same here.
If you look around this very studio, you see major changes
I do.
since the last time we were here.
Sure.
And I did all of that by myself.
I figured.
And that included taking a not light bookshelf off of a higher
An
spot.
IKEA Calyx.
Yeah. And getting it down and mounting that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was asking for all those passwords.
Okay.
Because it's all set up. It's all good.
Cool.
Barring one or two streaming services.
Okay.
Some of them are impossible to log out of
That's weird.
because there are existing accounts it signs into. It's like, no, let's sign out of that.
Crazy. Maybe, I mean, you could probably do like at a settings level. There's probably like a restore to defaults thing. That you'd
But
have,
I mean,
you'd have to log back and everything else.
we needed the main Roku part of it
Okay.
to still update.
Sure.
Also, the most level thing I've ever mounted.
That's great. Congratulations.
I did everything by the book on this one.
Good.
And took all the effort to hang up sawdust traps.
Okay.
So as I was drilling in, all the debris fell into a trap,
Very cool.
not falling down behind the shelves.
Where it would never be vacuumed up again.
Never be backing up again. The only minor hiccup was when I went to go plug everything in. The thing down there is a cable hookup, not an outlet.
Whoops.
But the outlet's over there.
Okay, good.
It's fine. So anyway, and that was not an insignificant amount of work.
Right.
So I mean, I'll do the work.
Right.
There is a task that needs to be done at the store. I'm putting it off because it is a lot of work and it's a lot of me having to stay late one night and moving everything out of the front windows. And that's the part I hate, is moving everything out of the front windows, then moving everything back.
Sure.
Clearing off the graphic novel tables, moving them out of the way. The shelving underneath those tables has to go.
Sure.
But I did a test run recently, and I'm pleased with the results.
Cool.
But again, it's just a matter of the biggest concern, and it all goes back to a mistake I made, that mega ladder is just too heavy.
That sucks.
I mean, it's manageable, but I hate it.
Sure.
I should have gotten one that was 2 feet shorter. Too late, though.
Too late.
Didn't even know how big it was until I had to completely destroy all of its packaging to get it open. And I mean, it serves a purpose. It's a good ladder.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too tall and too heavy. Anyway, I would prefer not to have to do all the physical work. But can you imagine opening another store right now? Or even just moving this one?
Yeah, I could. I mean, it seems like an insane amount of work. But
Yeah,
like,
that we did 4 years ago.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, the biggest problem structurally at Challengers is the counters. You cannot deconstruct them. Like, everything else, you can take books out of bookshelves, shelves out of bookshelves, break it down into component parts, and everything can move. It's a lot of trips. Some of those boxes are heavy. It's an insane amount of things that you have to move. But the counters are the worst part because they are the counters. Like, you can take everything out of them, but then it's like, you still need like 3 or 4 people to move them.
One of the problems with
and
those
they're
is
too
that
big to get through most of the doors.
they don't have a flat bottom, so you just can't put rollers under them.
Right.
Because there's no flat area.
Yeah, you'd have to find just the edges of it and then hope that they don't move off of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the counters is the worst part. Everything else, doable, workable. The counters just become like, you just need people and they can't move outside the store. They just have to move to a different part of the store.
I mean, even the physical work that went into setting up Blue, my brother helped with half of it.
Sure.
And I'm not going to ask him to do that anymore because if I don't want to do it, he's older than I am.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I was thinking about in terms
And look,
of like,
he would do it, but I don't want him to have to do it.
when the store
Because
opened,
we always go to him.
there were so many people that don't even live here anymore. But even if they did, they're 16 years older now.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want to do that.
Yeah. My parents both helped the opening week, or the week before we opened. Can't have them do it. I wouldn't want to have to move the store, open the store.
No, I'm not saying I would prefer it. I'm just saying, could it be done? Yeah, it could be done.
Also, it's not like we're not even hinting at anything. This
No.
is just we're just.
But
talking.
yeah, I absolutely wouldn't want to. I like how the story is right now.
We're one of the only stores, one of the only comic shops in Chicago that hasn't moved.
It's true.
Looking at everything, First Aid Taylor never moved.
Yes, that's true.
We haven't. All the graham crackers have.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago Comics did. First Aid Hyde Park did. Dark Tower moved several times.
Mm-hmm.
Alley Cat hasn't moved.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure there's others, but
yeah,
it's just a statistic. It's not like doesn't make us better or worse.
Sure.
We expanded. That's a thing. We definitely did
we
that.
We did, yeah. Sidekicks and the Rogues Gallery, yeah.
Even that was work.
It was a lot of work.
And a lot of masonry dust.
Yeah, that will probably never be gone. It's still under the bottoms of all of the club boxes.
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
It's funny how it just
It's like
gets up there.
It's been like a decade.
Yeah.
And like we still can't get that dust gone. Just can't.
It's 2010. Yeah, it was longer than a decade.
Yeah. So weird.
Crazy pants.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now the new previews has shipped this week.
You did.
And
all of the previews.
All the stuff coming out for June. Finally, in the catalogs are the DC versus Marvel Omnibus and the DC Marvel Amalgam Omnibus.
Yeah, although not both of the Jim Lee covers. The Jim Lee Amalgam direct market variant is shown in black and white, but the DC Marvel one, they're just like, we'll show it when it's done, which is crazy that it's not done yet.
I mean, this is a tribute to Brian at Managed Comics and his team that when those books were announced, they made sure to have them in a catalog, probably having to create the listings by hand, because more and more lately in this industry, things are announced so far in advance, and then customers immediately want them, and they don't get listed. For example, the David Mazzucchelli Batman Artist Edition was announced.
Batman Year One.
Batman Year One Artist Edition was announced forever ago, and we have several subscribers who are like, hey, I want that. It's still not in a catalog. It comes out in August. It is still not in a catalog. And I was so sure it was going to be in this time, I even did when I was doing the front counter books being released in June flyer that we put up, I put it on there. And then I'm like, well, let me double check and see. Because I made the mistake. I looked on PRH's website, and it's there.
Yeah.
But they list stuff early, too.
They sure do.
But it's not orderable yet for people, so I had to take it out. And it was great that Managed Comics had those two Marvel DC omnibuses available to order, but they are officially in the catalog now. So I still gave them space, even though I think everybody who wanted them already did. And then I had somebody ask about it on a Wednesday, and when I explained not what they were, but how much they were, that was a big turnoff.
Well, yeah, because people look at the covers and they're like, oh, I want this DC versus Marvel comic. And it's like, no.
Yeah,
those are $150 I'm to buy.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, nope. Yeah, so looking through the catalog, I'm just going to go through our email that subscribers should hopefully be getting Saturday. I haven't heard from Molly as to whether or not the copy overs are done yet, so I'll probably have to reach out to her tonight and go, hey, I mean, they have the book club tonight, so maybe she's working on it right now.
That was last week.
Oh, it was. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So
I'm sure it'll be marked off on the task list.
Okay, well, check tomorrow then.
Yeah.
Usually she lets me know either via email or text to say,
Okay.
hey, it's done, because I can't schedule the email to go out until I know they're done.
Right.
If they're not done, I need to do them myself. This is all stuff that we're going to be promoting to our customers from the new catalog.
That's you, hopefully.
That's you, hopefully. We're going to start off with Marvel. Ultimates #1. This is a weird one because this was in the Managed Comics database the previous catalog month.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in the actual print Marvel catalog until this month because it's one of those weird weeks where it's like, it's the first week of a month, but it's where the orders cut off is very weird. Marvel does that a lot where there's like a week's worth of stuff that they have data for in a system, but does not appear in the catalog. Ultimates #1, Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri. Dennis Camp from Children of the Vault. Juan Frigeri from Invincible Iron Man. Patrick, Ultimates #1?
Yeah, I already signed up for it.
I'm very interested in
By that I mean I signed George up for it.
in Marvel giving this creative team the Ultimates because it definitely feels like a polar opposite from like Mark Miller, Brian Hitch,
Sure.
where it's like I don't know what about these creators. They're an Ultimates team.
I like the art on Invincible Iron Man this run.
I did not. Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Dime. It's a Jason Aaron written Uncle Scrooge Marvel one shot.
Jason Aaron loves Uncle Scrooge. Would read it to his kid every night.
Alex
for
Ross
bed.
covered this.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a big deal.
I think so too. It's a weird
Do you
thing.
think he fights Thanos?
I think he fights so many Marvel characters.
But I mean, because Infinity's in the...
yeah. Well, it's a multiversal thing.
Yeah, okay.
But I think they're going to have a bunch of different Uncle Scrooges from different like continuities and stuff. Like I'm sure they will have the modern DuckTales Uncle Scrooge and then the classic 1980s DuckTales Uncle Scrooge, and they'll have
The Don Rosa.
yeah,
Uncle
exactly.
Scrooge.
I mean, there's a Carl Barks backup story in this, reprinting.
Is it a new one?
It's reprinting a classic one. Uncle Scrooge is such a weird thing because if this was coming out from like another publisher, we'd probably be like, no one's going to care. Because Uncle Scrooge comics have come out from other publishers and no one cares.
Yeah.
But this being a Marvel thing suddenly makes it like, yeah, people are probably going to sign up for this and they're probably going to buy it off the shelf.
And being a Jason Aaron thing, too, I think that's a big push for it as well.
I'll be interested to see how much that's the case. I think on pre-orders and stuff, but off the shelf, probably not so much.
Fair.
Venomverse Reborn.
Pass.
Yep. X-Men Heir of Apocalypse.
Pass.
I don't even remember.
I don't understand where this fits in, because this is pre-new launch, but it'll be, is it a one-shot or is it a miniseries?
It's a miniseries.
So it's going to be going on.
Yes. Well, it also takes place on Mars. I'm sorry, Araco. So it's going to be outside of the scope of what is probably happening in the other books. Like,
Then why do it?
well,
When you were relaunching your whole universe.
So here's the whole thing. I don't know that Marvel is as interested in doing a completely clean break from the incredibly successful last 4 years of X-Men comics as people think they might be. Like, I don't think this is going to end in the thing where, like, we've reset the continuity and this never happened, so we can never reference it ever again. It's probably going to be a thing where, like, some stuff will carry over. Elements of the status quo, perhaps, or at least a few characters, when you see them next, are probably going to be in a very, like, Jonathan Hickman era design.
Yeah, I assume
and
that
philosophy.
Araco doesn't just go away.
No, like, there's still characters there. There's
Right.
Apocalypse's whole story is there.
But why does there have to be a new Apocalypse?
No, it's the era of Apocalypse. For
Well, no,
centuries,
but
Apocalypse
that's the
tested
point.
the mutants of Earth to guarantee that only the strong would survive. Now, as he takes the throne on Araco, another must rise in his place and ensure the mutants of Earth do not grow weak in his absence. 12 mutants chosen from the X-Men's greatest heroes and villains will compete for the honor, but only one can become the heir of Apocalypse. I mean, I don't think he's going to, like, die. It's just like someone else is the new Apocalypse.
why does there have to be a new Apocalypse?
Because he's popular, Patrick. I don't know what you want me
But
to say.
he's still going to be on Mars doing his thing.
People are going to read this.
Okay.
I think it's okay for Marvel to do stuff that isn't like, we have one specific tone and one continuity for this. Some of the fun stuff in comics is just them saying, like the DC Black Label stuff, where it's like, who cares? Like,
I just don't understand why you didn't give this kind of
and a
detail to
Constantine thing here.
the Venomverse book.
You want me to talk about Venomverse? You said pass.
Oh, I said pass, but because you were asking me what I thought of each one.
Yeah.
That was, but I mean, you don't care about Venomverse either.
No.
Okay.
But, like, I think there's a reason for it to exist. The last one did okay, and, like, all that multiverse stuff, people do dig it. Like, there is a fan base for it. Spider-Gwen just did a thing, and Edge of Spider-Verse is coming out, and that keeps selling out year after year.
I wish they would do something with the titles.
Nope, it's just Edge of Spider-Verse every
Yep.
single year. DC's got My Adventures with Superman, a miniseries set between the recently concluded season 1 of the cartoon and the upcoming season 2. It is written by the head writer of My Adventures with Superman, Josie Campbell.
Also, the current Shazam writer.
Correct. Zatanna Bring Down the House, a new Black Label miniseries.
Which, this is, I don't understand how I missed that, because that would have made it onto the sheet for sure.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
It's a good cover, too. Look at
Yeah, it's a great, like, we talked about it before on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's Marco Tamaki and Javier Rodriguez.
Correct.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. It's Pride Month, so DC Pride 2024, which has, I think, Al Ewing's first DC stuff.
Yeah.
They're also doing a Rachel Pollack
Pride.
best of reprint tribute thing.
Yeah.
where it's got some of her stories and maybe some testimonials and maybe some other stuff. Elseworlds is getting completely restarted with Batman Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age miniseries by Andy Diggle and Leandro Fernandez.
Another sequel to Gotham by Gaslight.
But they also
there already
announced
was one
in the DC catalog that there's like each month for the next like 6 months, starting in June.
Yeah.
There's going to be Elseworld stuff. Like there's going to be a new Dark Knights of Steel thing, a new DC versus Vampire thing, and then some brand new concepts they'll be doing alongside them. Image has
DC versus Mummies.
Well, you can pitch it. Image has a Destro miniseries and a Scarlet miniseries, which are going to be replacing the by then concluded Duke and Cobra Commander miniseries. I think they overlap a little bit for like a month, and then it's just those two series. Destro is going to be by Dan Waters and drawn by Andre Bresson, who did Dark Ride.
You know what I think I never realized until the cover to that Scarlet book? That there's 2 T's in Scarlet.
Yep, in this one there's 2 T's. Scarlet by art by Marco Ferrari, who did Frontiersman, and written by Kelly Thompson, Birds of Prey. So very excited about that one. Scarlet, I read the preview pages that they released, and it basically looks like Black Widow but G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And Kelly Thompson wrote Black Widow. So if you read that series and miss it, Scarlet's
It was a
for you.
great series.
The big release from Image for the month, though, is Houses of the Unholy, the new Sean Phillips and Brubaker graphic novel.
That was one I almost didn't put on the list because everybody's going to get copied over from where the body was.
I didn't put that on there, so we're going to have to do that.
Image has, in my opinion, a couple of great sequels.
Mm-hmm.
One that we expected years ago and one that we didn't know was coming out.
Yep.
They have Precious Metal, which is by Darcy Van Polgeest and Ian Bertram, and it is the prequel to Little Bird.
Yep.
And remember how Little Bird was a huge hit for us?
Mm-hmm.
It was our first international sales battle where we basically humiliated All-Star Comics in Melbourne, who will be listening to this, and suddenly Mitchell will be grinding his teeth, angry at us, because we beat them just by a tiny little bit.
Sure.
And then they embarrassed us with Beta Ray Bill, which, by cheating, of course. But it's the prequel. It explains how that world got to that world, and they were working on this since Little Bird wrapped up.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I'm a little worried that this is a different time and a different comic buying era. And unfortunately, my expectations are
significantly lower.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is very, very hard to do a sequel project this many years out from it. I don't know that most people remembered Little Bird. It's not a book that we sell consistently in graphic novel form.
Yeah.
There was, again, a year or so afterwards, we were still selling it at a pretty good clip. Now it's just one of many books in the sci-fi fantasy section. We will probably put it on the front table. We'll remind people of it.
We'll do our best.
It's a big ask for so many years down the line. When did the first one come out? Pre-COVID?
Oh, yeah.
So that's how long ago
Yeah.
it was? I mean, we're talking like 5 years ago at this point. That's rough.
2017?
That is a very long time ago in the comics industry. I mean, 5 years. Like that's... It was not a long series to begin with. So it's not like this thing had years on the shelf.
Right.
And now you're coming back to it 5 years later. Like, I mean, it's like Fables. Like you just go away and you come back and there's a core group of people who will care, but it's a smaller core group than it would have been however many years ago.
But the other sequel, or the other follow-up, well, it's definitely a sequel that I'm very excited for. Now, earlier last year, I talked about an Image book I love called Click, Click, Boom, written by Doug Wagner, featuring Sprout, a mute survivalist, Adventures in the Big City, right? Love that book. But I was already a big Doug Wagner fan from his previous books, and the one right before that was Plush, about cannibalistic furries.
Sure, naturally.
And the one before that was called Vinyl, and it was about, and forgive me, I can't remember the artist's name. It was about an aging serial killer who was starting to the first signs of dementia, who misunderstood the relationship he had with the FBI agent that had been hunting him and thinking they were best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And he assembles a Justice League of serial killers to save this FBI agent who gets kidnapped. And that was a very fun, very violent, very bloody book. But before that, their first book the same writer and artist, was Plastic. And it was a love revenge story about a very homicidal man who was in love with a blow-up doll.
Mm-hmm.
And he was avenging the blow-up doll's honor in the book Plastic. And it was the first book I think I read by Doug Wagner, and it was so good and so ridiculous, so violent, but just, it came out of nowhere, and it didn't sell great for us at the time, but I've hand sold so many copies of the trade over the years, and I use that to pitch people to vinyl, to plush, and click, click, boom. Well, after all this time, they're doing a sequel to Plastic. I forget, it's called Dolls and Bullets or something like that. But anyway, it's a sequel to Plastic, and I never thought such a thing would exist.
Yeah.
And I will be talking about it for a while.
Cool.
Very happy that that is a thing that is in the world. And I'm trying to remember what else I put on the flyer.
Mm-hmm.
What it was? Oh, it was definitely Uncle Scrooge.
Thorn.
Oh yeah, Thorn, which is all the collected early Bone college strips from Jeff Smith.
Mm-hmm. Before it was Bone, it was called Thorn.
And it was about Thorn.
Yeah, she was the main character, and then the Bones were in it.
Yeah, and then that's what he did when he was in school. And so it was in the school paper for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So this is all the early Thorn strips featuring the first appearances of all the Bone characters, and then a bunch of sketches and stuff as well. I've already put that on my list as well.
Cool.
Because I have the full run of Bone stuff, so it would be weird not to have,
I guess, yeah,
the earliest stuff. It would be like not having the what was Frank Cho's book?
University Squared.
Well, that's what it was called when it was the comic, right? But what was
Liberty
it?
Meadows.
Liberty Meadows. So yeah, it would like having Liberty Meadows not having University Squared, which is a reference I think hardly anybody's gonna.
No, there's like 2 people listening to this, so I'll get that.
And they're right here.
Yeah.
They're
No. I can name the 2 people.
Okay. So there's good stuff coming out in June.
Yeah, I mean, there's good stuff every single month.
Sure. But we've never really done a podcast breakdown of things.
No, and if you want to know why, go back to the beginning of this where I start naming books and Patrick says pass. That's the reason why we do stuff like that. Because it's very easy to just be dismissive of a lot of this stuff, and that just makes the process of going through previews become more negative than it probably needs to be.
Sure. I was going to say we're doing it because it was fresh in our minds from having you had just done this email for everyone, and I had just done the illustrated flyer that has it all out there.
Yeah, we're getting into the times where the catalogs are going to start to be the bigger launches for the summertime. Again, we have Ultimates in June, and we've got the new...
all the Blood Hunt stuff is coming out.
Pass. The June catalog is the one that has the next Brubaker Phillips book, which won't be coming out in the same month as everything else. They list that a little earlier, but the next few catalogs should be some real big stuff, because you're going to have books that are going to be launching in July and August, and that's convention season, that's summertime, that's when publishers have a lot of their big launches. The next catalog is going to be the first X-Men one post Krakoa, so that's when you're going to be seeing a lot of that stuff. Not only the new X-Men book by Jed McKay and Ryan Stegman, but also potentially maybe some of the spinoffs that they haven't really announced yet. I don't know if those are going to wait until the 3 main books come out or not.
Do you think that they would, as far as the 6 spinoffs go, that were Storm and X-Force and Wolverine and Phoenix and NYX X-Factor, do you think they would, of those 6, they'd launch Wolverine first?
I don't know. I would think maybe you would want to... Some of those books you'd want to hold off until the corresponding team book launches. With Wolverine not showing up in one of the team books until the 2nd month, that's maybe when I would do the Wolverine solo book, or wait till month 3. Or, I mean, honestly, we're guessing that they're going to be launching them in the same 3-month period as the other titles. They might not. They might just do X-Men the 1st month, and then X-Men and Uncanny the 2nd month, and then X-Men and Uncanny and Exceptional the 3rd month. And then months 4, 5, and 6, they might start doing a few of the spinoffs each month, so that by the end of the year you have this full line. I would think they'd maybe want to not wait that long, because we get back to what we were talking about when we were first talking about the X-Men relaunch, which is, do you seriously only have one X-Men book the 1st month? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
That seems like a really, really hard thing to justify on a budgetary level for a publisher is we're not going to do a bunch of X-Men books over the summer. Like, that seems insane. So yeah, I would sort of expect the first month to be like X-Men, and maybe they'll also do like NYX and Storm. And then month 2 is Uncanny X-Men and Wolverine and X-Force. And then the final month is whatever is left over.
Speaking of Wolverine, do you think that Greg Capullo, who is the rumored artist for Wolverine,
I would almost guarantee
is the biggest name artist they have for this relaunch?
For the relaunch, I mean, I don't know who else they have.
But I mean, so far,
of the people
4,
that they've announced,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Greg Capullo is a huge name. He's a guy that does variant covers because his name is big enough that getting him to do a variant cover gets people to pay attention to
And
it.
do you think it even matters who the writer is as a result?
It will in the long run, because Greg Capullo is not going to do every single issue. That's not how comics work.
That's fair.
It probably won't
And
matter
maybe Wolverine
for the
doesn't
launch.
get mentioned or launched until the end to give him a huge run-up.
Well, we're assuming that he's not been working on it for a while.
Yeah.
And I in general, I think Marvel's at a point where they're like, if you can do 5 consecutive issues for an arc, that's great. Like, that's all we really need.
Yep.
And then you can have, 1 to 4 issues off and then do another arc. That's how they seem like they schedule a lot of their stuff now. And again, like, even 5 issues in a row is amazing. Ultimate Spider-Man issue 4 is by a fill-in artist. And I know issue 1 was like oversized, but
when your trade is the first 4 issues, you'd like to be consistent all the way through.
Unless there's a possibility that Penguin Random House's creator data for issue 4 is wrong. David Messina might not be drawing it. I don't know.
David Messina is a very good artist, though.
He's good, and he'll be a good fill-in, but it's still somewhat disappointing. And, like, again, issue 1 was oversized, but I never want to make an excuse for that because it's like, well, I don't know how long you had to start drawing it. So it's not like that's the same schedule you'll have to keep for every issue, which is why issues 2 and 3 become regular sized.
Yeah.
Because you only have so many weeks between issues 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
David Messina, who had signed at Challengers once before.
He did with Sarah Pichelli.
With Sarah Pichelli. And also, I inked him on an Angel cover for IDW.
Neat.
And then I gave him a signed print of that when he signed. How egotistical is that?
I hope he framed it.
Speaking of egotistical, I'd like to point out that as of right now, the new Divorce Gun EP entitled The Upholstered Urinal Strike Back is available on almost every conceivable streaming service. I've seen the list of sites it's on. It is extensive. It is long, and I only know about 5 of them.
Certainly Spotify.
But they're,
It's on Spotify.
Yeah,
so
Spotify.
for people who use Spotify, which is most people who do streaming music, you can get it there.
Amazon Music. It is available for use on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. Those are separate music platforms as well that it's on.
Can't wait to see the dances that people come up with to these songs,
Right?
Patrick.
I'm incredibly proud of this, and I'll probably have, if I haven't done it already, I'll drop a song in somewhere because I can do this because I have full rights to this music.
What if Bob sues you?
What do you mean?
I mean, he's part of it.
Oh, he'd love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm making a joke.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think Bob's actually going to sue you because you used
Oh, sue! I thought you said seize you.
No.
And I didn't understand what that meant.
No.
Oh, he'd win. He's way better lawyers.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew.
Whoops.
The only problem is it's not on Apple. It's mysteriously not on Apple.
Too hot for Apple Music.
That's what I said. I said they realized that everybody would just listen to that and it would hurt other artists' feelings.
Ariana Grande was like, no.
Yeah.
I just had a new album drop. How dare you? How dare you, Divorce Gun?
It is such a thing now where an artist will release a single and then like 2 months they'll re-release a single but have a guest artist on it with them. The Charlie XCX just did it with her new single Von Dutch. Like, oh, here's the Von Dutch remix with this person on it. So when Ariana Grande asked to be on the remix for Towel Me Off, we're not doing the remixes. So she took offense to it. It wasn't because she wouldn't be good. She'd be great in it,
no. But it's against your creative sensibilities.
We're not doing it.
You don't want to pander like that. I get it.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not on Apple Music, which, as you pointed out, most people use Spotify. It's on Spotify.
Right.
Go listen to it. The band's name is The Divorce Gun, or just Divorce Gun, and it's The Upholstered Urinal Strike Back. And you can also find our previous release from 2018, The Waning Days of the World. So I'm very, very proud of this very brief, very quick 5-song EP that is less than 14 minutes. You can listen to it now. And we're going to cheat this month because we're recording this in March, and I'll upload it on Easter Sunday, which is the 31st, which is our official 16th anniversary. But that's technically still March, but I'm still going to consider it the Monday release, which is April 1st.
Okay.
So I'm going to be thanking all the patrons in this one, even though it's technically recorded in March.
Sure. I think they'll be okay with that.
So thanks, patrons. It's now time to thank our Patreon supporters, including our annual patrons, Usi Arun Singh, Becca Hilburn and Joseph Coco, Bren Helt, Dal's mom Diane Bush, President of the Brian Garside Fan Club, Django Borin, Philip Sablik from Boom Studios, Jose and Genevieve Villagomez, Josh Crowley of Westfield Comics, our bestest wrestling watching pal, Michael Lee, Michael Romanenko, our patrons who have created their own tier, Andrew, Drew Troy Aaliyah, Bridget K. Neville, Chris Burton, Claudine Neville, our other generous patrons from the Say My Name pledge level, Ben-Hur Benedict Calaguas, Brad Brooks, Manage Comics Own, Brian Garside, Christopher Haith of Crooked Dog Comics, Drew Triner and Ashley Edwards, my brother George Brower, Heidi D, Holly Aitchison, Jacob Sorelli of Kamikaze, Josh Trigg, Mark Hammond of Aw Yeah Comics, Margie, Keith, Logan, and Malcolm Springham, Matt Armstrong, Mitchell Davies of All Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, Morgan Dynamite Perry, my longtime pal Robert Burns, Ron Payne, Sean Bowers, Tad Eggleston and Johnny Williams, Thomas Nagovin of Century Guild, Walt Grogan, Walt's Comic Shop from Berlin, Germany. And if you want to hear your name thanked on this very podcast once a month, head over to patreon.com/challengers and pledge at the $5 Say My Name level. And a big thank you to all our other patrons at the various other pledge levels. And after all that thanking, here's some more. Thanks for being part of Challengers for 16 years or whatever your role has been in it.
And keep reading comics into year 17.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.